Welcome everyone to tonight's council meeting for Monday, the 11th of November 2024 at 6 p.m. Could we all stand for the opening affirmation and acknowledgement to country? Thanks. Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Mayor Mac. We gather to represent the people of Albury who have entrusted us with this task. May our efforts be blessed with insight, wisdom and common sense. May our personal values give us honesty and courage to serve our community effectively and with respect for all.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron, the acknowledgement to country, thanks.
We would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people as the traditional custodians of the land that we meet upon today and pay our respects to the elders past, present and future, for they hold the memories, culture, tradition and hopes of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that contribute to our community.
Thank you. You may be seated. Recording and webcasting of this meeting. This council meeting is being webcast and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to being recorded and webcast. Please ensure that if and when you are speaking at this council meeting that you are respectful to other people and use appropriate language. Albury City accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. An audio recording will be made for administrative purposes. Conflict of interest declarations, I've received none. Mr. Zachnich.
Thank you, Mayor Mac. One conflict of interest declaration from myself in relation to the CEO performance plan, a pecuniary conflict of interest. The item is a CM 17.1 CEO performance plan 2024-25, and the action I will take is to leave the chamber when that matter is discussed. In terms of disclosure of political donations and requirements of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979, the Act under Section 10.4 requires a person submitting a planning application or submission regarding a planning application to disclose any reportable political donation and or gifts to any local councillor or employee of the council. Reportable political donations include those of or above $1,000. The disclosure statement forms are available on council's website and must be lodged in accordance with the Act. In dealing with development applications, councillors need to take into account specific planning matters contained in the Act. Accordingly, the provisions of Section 4.151 of that Act are set out in the Council Officer's report detailing planning issues to be considered. The Local Government Act, Section 375A, requires that a division be called whenever a motion for a planning decision is put at a meeting of the Council. Planning decision means a decision made in the exercise of a function of Council under the Act, including a decision relating to a development application, an environmental planning instrument, a development control plan, or a development contribution plan under the Act, but not including the making of an order under Division 9.3 of Part 9 of that Act. Thank you, Mayor Mac.
Thank you, Mr. Zachnich. We have CM4 apologies. Everyone is here and accounted for. We have no apologies. 4.2, we have no attendance by councillors at meeting by audio visual link. CM5, we have no mayoral minute. Action plans, thanks council. CM6, 6.1 to 6.4. Thank you. Councillor Callaghan.
I'd like to move the recommendation that the following action plans be received and noted. 1, actions complete for noting only. 2, actions awaiting response from external parties. 3, actions in progress. And 4, long-term issues more than 3 months.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
I'd like to second that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Callaghan, did you wish to speak to that at all?
No, thank you, Mayor Mac.
Councillor King, you've got your button pressed. Did you wish to
It
speak
was
to
just
that?
to second the motion.
No.
that's-
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, there being no further questions or debate, happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. CM7, confirmation minutes of the previous meeting held on Monday, the 28th of October, 2024. Thank you, councillors. Councillor King.
I move that the minutes of the council meeting held on Monday, the 28th of October, 2024 at 6:32 p.m. be confirmed.
Thank you. Councillor Bullivan.
Second that motion, Mayor Mac.
Thank you. Councillor King, did you wish to speak to that at all?
I'm happy to put the motion unless there's other councillors wish to speak.
Thank you. There appears to be none and it appears to be okay. We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Reports from community forums, there are none. CM9, 9.1, notice of motion aquatic facilities. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. Mayor Mac, I move that Council A resolves that all planning for aquatic facilities at Lauren Jackson Sports Centre be suspended until 2030. B, further resolves that apart from necessary maintenance of the Albury Swim Centre, all aquatic upgrades will be at the Lavington Swim Centre until 2030. And subject to the community consultation, when finished, Council receives a report on the viability of the following features in the redevelopment of the Lavington Swim Centre. I, a 10-lane, 52-metre heated outdoor pool with ramp entry, and B, grandstand poolside seating. Sorry, A, grandstand poolside seating. B, boom to be installed to allow for multi-purpose use, which will allow competition, lap swimming, school swimming, carnivals, and local water polo training and competition. C, a 12-month operational outdoor heated pool in scope to enclose such a pool. Roman numeral 2, a dedicated heated outdoor deep water 2-metre depth utility pool, 30 metres by 30 metres size. This will cater for a mixture of programs from fitness programs, lifestyle, water polo and swimming, 12-month operational outdoor heated pool. Roman numeral 3, a dedicated heated outdoor program pool to cater for learn to swim and other aquatic activities. Roman numeral 4, a dedicated all abilities water play zone suitable for babies and children with 0 entry points with capacity to be seasonally heated. Roman numeral 5, a separate club office room / mixed usages for all user groups. Roman numeral 6, a cafe with casual seating that will serve indoor and outdoor spaces. Roman numeral 7, separate modern family-friendly change rooms and amenities for outdoor activities and dedicated disabled change rooms. Roman numeral 5, 6, 7, 8. Open park-like space, barbecues for families to meet, gather and relax. Roman numeral 9, office / administration areas. Roman numeral 10, provision of shade and storage areas. Roman numeral 11, a best practice plant room area design. Roman numeral 12, pool hoist to facilitate access for people who require it. Roman numeral 13, if practical, the main pool, heated pool, to be designed with a movable bulkhead to allow greater operational use. Roman numeral 14, if practical, the redevelopment to include a designated water polo pool. D, the redevelopment of the Lavington facility be designed to allow stage developments as council's budget allows.
Thank you. Seconder, thanks. Councillor Baker, are you seconding this motion?
Second the motion, Mayor Mac.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron, did you wish to open debate on the motion?
Yes, thank you. This has been a somewhat controversial issue, I beg your pardon, over the years. Council 2 terms ago resolved not to proceed with this concept. In the last term of council, it was reversed. That position was reversed, and it was resolved to proceed with this concept. And now I seek to restore the position of council substantially from 2 terms ago, but also to ensure the long-term viability and development of the Lavington Swim Centre. This is something I've been open about. It's something I've never changed my position on ever. And I've always, in subsequent elections and in the last election, I've made it one of my key promises to keep open the Lavington Swim Centre. There's a couple of things I think that have to be acknowledged in this discussion and in this debate. One of them is that there's been a lot of misinformation. We received some emails on this, councillors. I think it was about 13 emails in total, not a great deal. But it was clear from their tenor and from the contents of some of those emails that people in the aquatics facilities, in the aquatics sports in Albury, have been told some things that I don't believe are true. The key thing is that I think a lot of people seem to think that there is funding available for this project. This project it was slated 2 or 3 years ago to cost over $120 million. $120 million. That's more or about the budget of Albury City Council for an entire year. That is not something the city can afford. People then say, and have said in past discussions and debates about this, well, we wouldn't do it unless we got funding. The trouble is, as we learnt from the Art Gallery project and as we learnt from the Lavington Oval project, both projects that I opposed, I might add, once you start, it becomes a slippery slope. The next thing that will happen is we'll do detailed design if this motion doesn't get up tonight. And that alone will cost $1.5 million. $1.5 million just to design the facility. That, having done that, it becomes an argument that we have to keep going. And this is what happened with the art gallery once again. We have to keep going or we'll lose the funding. Now, sooner or later, yes, one level of government may offer some money, but they're not going to offer $120 million or anything like it. The best that could be hoped for, I would think, would be around the vicinity of $20 to $30 million, leaving Albury City Council and Albury City ratepayers with a huge burden. In addition, it's not just the ever increasing construction costs, it's the burden of running these facilities and running a facility of this size. The better plan, I believe, and the only affordable plan in reality, is to gradually improve and develop the Lavington facility to something that can be affordable to the city of Albury and the people of Albury, and something that can provide a other alternative site to the Albury Aquatic Centre. Because this is also not being acknowledged, I think, in this discussion. If this project goes ahead at Lauren Jackson, it will be the death knell of Lavington and Albury. Many of the emails we received said, oh, yes, by all means, go ahead and upgrade Lavington. It'll be very complementary to the Lauren Jackson development. Well, that is a fantasy. It will be so expensive and the maintenance costs alone will be so prohibitive that it will be the end of Albury and the end of Lavington. And it will preclude ever developing a swim facility in Thurgoona, at least in my lifetime, I think. Will this facility ever be built? It is conceivable that one day it may be. But at the moment, we are in deficit. For the next 10 years, we have huge infrastructure challenges that I know councillors are aware of. Albury City must spend hundreds of millions of dollars upgrading transport infrastructure, particularly in Thurgoona, and sewage and water infrastructure to try and build a facility where we will have the bulk of the financial burden on us of this scale and size, which is really approaching a world-class facility. And I mean, I have no agenda against the aquatic sports. You know, I'm happy for people to pursue whatever sport they like. And I would like everybody to have a world-class facility, but it's simply not affordable. It's simply not affordable in this city. If by this logic, we would build an MCG type facility for the Aussie rules players. We'd build a Wimbledon style complex for the tennis players. We'd build, you know, a major English league type stadium for soccer players. It's not affordable. It's not something that a provincial city like Albury can do. And it's probably not something that Sydney or Melbourne could do successfully with the budgets that they have. So stories that this will be funded by somebody else are simply fantasy. The majority of this project would have to be borne by the ratepayers of Albury. That would necessitate rate variations, special rate variations, and increases in rates that in the cost of living crisis are not achievable. Our only alternative practical solution is to gradually upgrade Lavington. Thank you.
Thank you. I have another speaker forward. Councillor Baker, you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor Mac. I've got a question and then I'm trying to push my against button, but it might take a minute to...
Happy to hear the question, then you can speak against. Thank you.
Thank you. Probably this question could be to the mover of the motion, Councillor Cameron. Is there a funding stream for the development at Lavington? I know we've got 14.45 million in the budget, but just on a cursory glance at the list of the wish list, that would be 60, 70 million. So I'm just curious if you've got a funding stream in mind.
Councillor Cameron.
I'm not going to engage in debate by questions. You know, we have a process of speaking to the motion, speaking against the motion, and I'm happy to engage there. But I will say this: the motion is in plain English. It's very easy to read. It says two things, and I expect to hear more about this later, that the process, the planning will be informed by the public consultation underway at Lavington, and the report will be done after that consultation is closed. So I hope that we won't hear another, but as I have heard in the last week, people saying that, oh, why would you make a decision before you hear the consultation? Well, it's very clearly says you wait for the consultation. Second thing is that it is, if practical And also the final paragraph is the most important, that it be designed in such a way that it can be done incrementally and gradually as funding becomes available, as council can afford to fund it itself, perhaps. It's not an all at once proposition. That if we're going to do that, as people have also remarked, then you may as well go ahead with the Lauren Jackson concept. It's a progressive, stage by stage process to be done as it can be afforded.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Councillor Baker, before you speak again, I've got another question from Councillor King. Happy to take the question. Thank you. Councillor King.
Through you, Mayor Mac, to the most relevant member of staff. In a report to council previously, there was a suggestion that the ongoing operational costs of the Lauren Jackson Aquatic Centre proposal would likely deliver a surplus in the order of $100,000 per annum. Is that a reasonably accurate assumption, knowing that there's still other things?
Mr. Glass.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor King, and through you, Mayor Mac. That was the report finding from the feasibility study. We have no new information to discount that earlier finding.
Happy with that, Councillor King?
Yes. Just another question.
Thank you. I have two more questions. Councillor Baker, did you wish me to take those or did you wish to speak? Okay. Councillor Hudson, question.
Thank you, Mayor Mac. Through to the most relevant member of staff. Looking at regional aquatic facilities, for example, the proposed Tamworth Regional Aquatic Facility, which I believe has been costed at $45 million and has received $15 million in grant funding from the New South Wales State Government in 2023. Look, as a new councillor who hasn't been involved in the previous discussions around the Lauren Jackson upgrade, can I just get a sense of why the cost to build the regional aquatic facility at Lauren Jackson is on the order of $150 million, as opposed to what Tamworth's able to achieve? Because look, I'm not a swimmer, I acknowledge that, and I'm not involved in competitive swimming, but it does seem like what they're proposing to build at Tamworth is at least in the same ballpark as what's proposed for Lauren Jackson. I'm just wondering why there'd be such a discrepancy in the costs.
Mr. Glass, yeah, I think it was 120 million, Councillor Hudson. Yeah, Mr. Glass.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Hudson, and through you, Mayor Mac. The difference could be partially explained without knowing the full details and specifications of both facilities, but we have seen a significant amount of cost escalation over the last couple of years. I do note that 2023 you referenced it, but I think it was subject to funding and agreements earlier than even 2023 that tender went through. But yes, partially driven by cost escalations, and I'll come back to the councillor group with some further clarity around the difference in the specifications.
You happy with that, Councillor Hudson?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Baker, you've got your button pressed for a question.
I would like to, thanks, Mayor Mac. I'd like to speak against the motion, but I have another question following on from Councillor Hudson's question through you to the most relevant member of staff. Mr. Ambrose, would it be correct to say that the reason the amount of money is so much for the Lauren Jackson development is because it includes basketball and other associated uses?
Mr. Glass.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Baker. And in broad terms, the numbers are broadly accurate. What's been quoted tonight, 120 for the aquatic section out of a total project of 150 for stage 2. So 120 for aquatics and roughly 30 million. Noting that was a feasibility study and would have to pass through both preliminary design for further costing and then detailed design for even further accurate costing in the future.
Thank you. Did you wish to speak against?
Follow-up question before I speak again?
Yep. Okay.
How do you get to a point where there's accurate costing? And
thank you for the question. We've only conducted feasibility at this stage. During preliminary design, you progress the design, you de-risk more of the project, you understand more about the specification, and then of course, detailed design provides more details as to what the costings might be. And then ultimately, obviously, there's a tender process as well that determines the cost.
You comfortable with that?
yep, thank you.
Have to speak against now?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay.
I will be speaking against this motion. And before I discuss the merits or otherwise of this motion, I would like to inform you of what transpired at my workplace on Monday, the 4th of November at around noon. So that's Monday a week ago. I would also like to add I made contemporaneous notes at the time, and I'm more than happy to share this with the CEO if anything I'm about to say becomes the subject of a code of conduct breach. On Monday last week, I received a visit from two very trustworthy men who said, "We want you to know what is being said behind your back." And this is just one sentence, and I'm about to quote. Mayor Mack has been shooting off his mouth at the Newmarket Hotel, saying that they will overturn the pool decisions and Stuart Baker will then resign.
That's a little bit too far.
Excuse me, Mayor Mack, this is a conversation I had on Monday.
It's no place for that conversation in this chamber.
I don't think it is a point of order. Could the General Manager please?
Point of order, Mayor Mack.
Point of order, Councillor Cameron.
This is an egregious breach of the meeting code of practice and the code of conduct for councillors. I urge Councillor Baker to stop it and behave himself and behave normally. I don't know what strategy is cooked up here, but it's completely out of order.
It's in fact getting to the point of defamation, Councillor Baker. Please proceed, please. Yes.
I will be relying on the truth, but I'll keep going, and I've got no more quotes. This was disturbing to hear, both from a personal perspective, as I feel I represent my community with integrity to the best of my ability, but also from a council and good governance viewpoint, as it is hardly the type of behaviour, especially from our city's mayor, that inspires inclusivity or trust.
Are you still going, Councillor Baker?
Well,
Without the quote, I would like you to restrict your position to the debate and not diminishing or demeaning other councillors. This is a point of disorder at the moment. If you continue, you'll have to leave the chamber.
okay.
So speak to your motion, speak to your opposition to the motion, and desist from this particular point of questioning or statement.
Okay, I'm perfectly willing to tell the story to the press. So I will drop the last
Well, if you
sentence.
tell it to the press, let the next steps take place. Thank you.
Beautiful.
If you
Thank
confine
you.
yourself to speaking against the motion, more than happy to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, to dissect the motion. A, resolves that all planning for aquatic facilities at the Lauren Jackson Sports Centre be suspended until 2030. In December 2021, both Jess Callaghan and I were elected to the previous council, and central to our campaign.
Councillor Cameron.
Code of
your point
meeting
of order.
practice requires councillors to refer to councillors as councillors, not by any other name.
Thank you. You okay with that, Councillor Baker?
Absolutely happy.
Thank you.
Sorry. In December 2021, both Councillor Callaghan and I were elected to the previous council, and central to our campaign was the support for the regional aquatic facility, which has been widely embraced and supported by the entire community. They need and want Albury City to have the vision and professionalism to plan for our future, and judging by the overwhelming negativity to Councillor Cameron's motion by aquatic users and various other respondents, they certainly do not want this process interfered with. Don't be fooled by the 2030 timeline. This is a blatant attempt to derail an 8-1 decision taken by the Albury Council just on 1 year ago on the 23rd of October. Subsequent to that, on the 22nd of July 2024, 5 months ago, the master plan for Lauren Jackson Stage 2 was adopted, and progression of preliminary design in accordance with the adopted 2024-2028 four-year delivery plan was endorsed. Part A should be voted down, and the due process and good governance decision already in place that this community supports should be allowed to stand. Part B further resolves that apart from necessary maintenance at the Albury Swim Centre, All aquatic upgrades will be at the Lavington Swim Centre until 2030. This is another irresponsible inclusion to the motion. Albury Swim Centre desperately needs more shade structures, and unfortunately, declaring that nothing other than routine maintenance should be expended on any aquatic facility other than Lavington is just plain foolish. C, subject to the community consultation, when finished, Council receives a report on the viability of the following features in the redevelopment of the Lavington Swim Centre. Most of the components of a regional aquatic facility have been suggested as inclusions or options for the Lavington Swim Centre. Not only did the consultants' report soundly support Lauren Jackson as the preferred site for the regional aquatic facility, it also looked at Lavington as a potential site, but it was found to be unsuitable for a whole range of reasons, including parking, access, catchment, and economies of scale. That is, the wrong place. On the 10th of April 2024, Council resolved to proceed with the replacement of Lavington Swim Centre, excluding diving infrastructure, to current and best practice standards as per the adopted 4-year delivery plan, with consideration for water play and learn to swim opportunities to complement and not compete with the proposed regional aquatic facility at Lauren Jackson Sports Centre. In reference to the stakeholder engagement plan at Lavington, the report went on to conclude the stakeholder engagement plan serves as a blueprint for inclusive decision-making, ensuring that community voices are heard and incorporated into the design process. By adhering to the engaging Albury principles and employing diverse engagement techniques, the plan seeks to foster a sense of ownership and pride among stakeholders in shaping the future of the Lavington Swim Centre. Sadly, the motion before us is an amateurish attempt to influence and contaminate a fair and equitable community consultation stage in the Lavington Swim Centre process, and it should be seen for what it is, and that is another attempt to sow division and chaos. D, the redevelopment of the Lavington facility to be designed to allow staged development as council budget allows. This also needs to be voted against, because until due process with the stakeholder engagement plan runs its course and there are some options for council to decide upon, Part D has no relevance. I implore my fellow councillors to vote no on this motion in its entirety and allow the probity already enshrined in the 2 current positions of council regarding Lauren Jackson Stage 2 and Lavington Centre replacement to run its course.
Thank you. I have a speaker for, but a question from Councillor Hudson. Councillor Hudson?
Thanks, Mayor Mac. I'll withdraw my question for now.
Thank you. Councillor Callahan, I've got a question from Councillor King. Did you wish to ask a question?
Through you to the most relevant member of staff, can you reflect on the reasons why, in terms of Lauren Jackson, option 4 was looked at favourably in choosing options for the master plan, and particularly the reference to a regional level aquatic centre, and why that, just to reflect everyone's memories for that process?
Mr. Glass.
Thank you for the question, Councillor King, and through you, Mayor Mac. I think some of the content that Councillor Baker captured was true in terms of the location from a catchment perspective, as far as and that was probably versus an earlier aquatic strategy from 2017 that identified that had preference for Lauren Jackson over Lauren Jackson for a regional aquatic centre. Clearly, there's opportunities for operational efficiencies by having aquatic facilities co-located with core facilities, as well as further opportunities for adjacent services such as allied health and others that relate to aquatics and the broader precinct and health precinct in that part of the city. Does that answer your question?
Councillor Baker, Councillor King.
And just in terms of the regional perspective, for example, the regional skate park, sometimes they're seen to view that if it's a regional level, that has implications for funding streams. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, Mr. Ambrose.
Yes, thank you, Councillor King, and you're quite right. If you can find dual services to occur, then there's a possibility, such as what we've got with Lauren Jackson Stage 1. It's a multi-court facility that looks to multi-service, and that does tend to attract more funding. Obviously, being a regional, as you say, a regional centre is more likely to attract funding than what you would for a particular singular LGA. That's right.
You comfortable with that, councillor King? Thank you. Question from councillor Hudson this time.
Thank you, Mayor Mac, through to the most relevant member of staff. With any major infrastructure proposals such as the Lauren Jackson upgrade stage 2, can funding be sought from other sources such as state or federal government without preliminary or detailed design? Does that happen?
Mr. Zachnich?
Thanks for the question, councillor Hutchinson, through you, Mayor Mac. It can happen, but the risk is, councillor Hudson, that we may well secure the funding without that detailed design, but then suffer the risk of costs not being clearly identified, and then council and the community having to fund more of that funding than it would have otherwise if the business case, the preliminary and detailed design was such that it gave a solid estimate of what those costs were going to be, and then that could inform also a staged funding strategy for whatever location the council determines to upgrade. Could apply equally to Lavington as well as Lauren Jackson.
Comfortable?
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Callaghan speaking for the motion.
Thank you. I'd like to move an amendment, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to move that that council defers preparation of a request for tender for preliminary design of aquatic facilities at Lauren Jackson Sports Centre until such time as an alternative funding source becomes available to pursue the project. B, in accordance with the 2024-25 adopted budget, pursue preliminary design for the stage 2 of Lauren Jackson Sports Centre multi-sport and associated facility elements, including 5 additional courts as outlined in stage 2 master plan adopted by council on the 22nd of July 2024. C, reflect budget savings arising from the revised project scope in the December quarter budget review. And the D continues on with the original motion. I won't continue with those.
Thank you, councillor Callaghan. Do you have a seconder for that amendment?
Move, Mayor Mac.
You happy with that?
Yes.
Being acceptable? The seconder, who was the seconder again?
Councillor Baker.
Councillor Baker, you comfortable with that being added, councillor Baker?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we'll just add that to the substantive motion and that will become the motion. Thank you. Councillor Baker, did you wish to speak? No?
Excuse me, Mac. I am happy to speak against it, but maybe the
No, well, it is
mover
the
wants to
motion
speak
now,
first.
so it's not an amendment, it's part of the motion and you've already spoken to that motion.
No,
Yeah, you've already spoken against it,
I haven't spoken against this part.
but you've allowed it become the motion, so it's already been spoken to by yourself. It's not an amendment in the true sense. If you'd allowed it to become an amendment, then you could speak against the amendment or for the amendment. But because it's become a part of the motion now, you've already spoken to the motion as it is currently existing. And I understand it's been changed, but it is still the motion. It's not an amended motion in the context of what you're suggesting.
Excuse me, Mac. Could I please ask for clarification from the General Manager
Sure.
on this?
Mr. Zachnich.
Thanks for the question, councillor Bacon, through you, Mayor Mac. So councillor Callaghan has moved an amendment that the mover and seconder of the original motion have accepted. So it now becomes part of the original motion. So what we have now before us is the motion essentially moved. Councillor Cameron, seconded. Councillor Baker is the motion for debate.
Thank you, Mr. Zaknich. Okay, Councillor Callaghan, you wish to speak for the motion?
Thank you, I do. My commitment is to making sound, responsible financial decisions for the future of our community. I ran successfully on my own ticket in 2024 and I'll make my own decisions moving forward. I also ran noting that I'd be advocating for a 50-metre pool at Lavington. Albury City Council has a $20 million deficit. To date, Albury City Council has invested $90,000 on a comprehensive business case and feasibility study to assess the potential for an indoor aquatic facility. I don't deem it wise to spend an additional $1.5 million of ratepayer funds on planning for a $151 million project, knowing that all layers of government, be it local, state and federal, are all tightening their purse strings. It is crucial we recognise the possibility that a proposed investment of $1.5 million in preliminary design may become obsolete, thus wasting $1.5 million of our taxpayers' money. I'm calling for supported funding with this motion. If we seek grant funding to support the preliminary design, then there is an increased viability of the project moving forward. Instead, we should focus on the immediate realistic needs within our community. Lavington is ready to invest and to expand. The area has a capacity to meet our community's needs for more accessible water facilities. There are many moving parts with aquatics that we still need to consider, including the current community consultation for Lavington, and we are awaiting the Thaguna-Warringah structure plan due in mid-2025. For now, we already have the information needed for Lauren Jackson Sports and Aquatic Centre in a 157-page document from the consultants at Leisure Planners. I believe our efforts and our funds should go towards immediate investment in Lavington. At the very least, our community needs a 52-metre, 10-lane, year-round heated pool. Additionally, basketball, another major economic driver for our region, should not suffer due to its links to aquatics. The Country Cup is Albury's single biggest economic boost, with extensive weight lifts showing the demand for basketball participation. It is vital that we move forward with the planned 5 courts to support its growth. I have supported regional aquatics development in the past. However, with the insight we now have with our financial forecast, I'm choosing to exercise due diligence by not proceeding with further aquatic planning at this time. Instead, invest in our initiatives that will serve our community's immediate needs while continuing to seek grant funding for future aquatic projects. Changing your mind when you gain new information is a sign of growth and adaptability. It shows a willingness to respond to the facts rather than remaining anchored to the past decisions that may no longer serve the best interests of those involved. Making informed financial decisions are essential to effective leadership and sound judgment. The additional information Albury City Council have is that it simply cannot afford a $1.5 million design to the aquatics facilities at the Lauren Jackson at this time. We cannot be frivolous with our finances and we need grant funding to proceed any further preliminary design. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan. I speak against, but I've got a question. Are you happy to take the question, Councillor Baker? Thank you. Councillor Cameron, you have a question?
I'll actually withdraw the question.
Okay. Speaker against, Councillor Buchan. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, speaking against this motion and indeed the amended motion that we're looking at now. I can't support this for a number of reasons, and some of this has already been touched on by Councillor Baker. And this is in no particular order, but a number of my thoughts as to why I cannot support this motion, even the amended motion, is that the Lavington facility, aquatics facility, is at the moment with our community for consultation. And I had written down a note that it appears that this might be tainting or attempting to taint what the community might then feed back to us. What we really wanted was our community to tell us what they really thought, what they really needed, what they really envisaged would be at the Lavington facility. And I am a supporter of the Lavington pool. I'm mindful that this is not the way we should do things. We should ask our community and then we should ask our staff to provide us with a report on the community consultation as is our normal process. This is not our normal process. It is not really possible to seek funding for any aquatics facility, whether it be Lavington, and I do acknowledge there appears to be a lot in this Lavington wish list of Councillor Cameron's that would otherwise probably normally appear in a regional aquatics facility. But it's not possible to seek funding unless we've got a good design and some good costings for either the what we have hitherto been referring to as the Albury Aquatics Facility, or indeed this somewhat enlarged Lavington wish list facility, which I also note might have difficulty fitting on that site, let alone allowing people to be able to park there should they wish to use it. We also have works that need to be undertaken at the Albury facility, not significant, but important and necessary works. So we cannot afford to halt the work that is required and is part of our budgetary plans for the Albury pool. I'm not really sure where Councillor Cameron thinks, or indeed Councillor Callaghan, because she's supporting this motion, it would appear, where they think we would obtain such funding for this facility. I have had numerous emails in support of, or sorry, not in support of what was the motion from Councillor Cameron that was made available to the public as part of the agenda, not in support of it, but I haven't had any in support. And I can't recall anybody during the election period actually raising anything against the aquatics facility, as was then, as is still until we deal with this motion here tonight, the plan for Albury, and that is to have an aquatics facility. And part of that is to go through with the detailed plan. I haven't had anyone who actually raised any concerns with that. I've had people supporting works to be done at Lavington. I've had people telling me that we can't afford to lose Albury. And the reality is that we cannot afford to lose very much water, either out of Albury or Lavington pools, because of the number of people who use it. The Albury Aquatics Facility is really, it is hoped, and at the moment scheduled to provide us with greater water, more water, and all year round water. It would become efficient to be able to have that indoor facility because people would be able to swim all winter and it would be much more effective to run. We would have significantly more people using that facility and it would therefore become more cost effective. So I cannot support the original, I couldn't support the original motion and nor can I support the amended motion from Councillor Callaghan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glacken. No speakers for, speaker against, Councillor Hudson.
Thank you, Mayor Mack. Look, I did not support the original motion as written, and I thank Councillor Callaghan for her amendments because I do think it improves this motion. However, I still can't support it for a number of reasons. Really, I think a lot of the concern around the upgrade of Lauren Jackson does seem to be based on conjecture and a slippery slope fallacy. And I do think that there's a bit of a chicken and an egg situation happening here, particularly with regards to point A, that we seek, that we delay preparation until such a time as alternative funding sources become available. Without more detailed design documents, I don't think it would be responsible to do that. If we look at the North Sydney pool redevelopment, which has blown out massively and is forcing a special rate variation quite likely on that council, there were 136 contract variations due to incomplete design documentation. Is one of many reasons why that project has blown out. So I think by spending the 1.5 million on preliminary detailed design documents, it actually enables us to make a far more responsible decision about the viability of pursuing a project down the track. I do think that the region needs an indoor year-round aquatic facility. And so, but I also don't acknowledge that in the current climate, Albury Council certainly cannot afford what's been proposed, but that's why we need more information. And I think that can only come from having those design documents. I absolutely support Lavington retaining a 50-metre pool. There's roughly 14.5 million already allocated in the budget for the refurbishment of the Lavington pool, and I welcome that. So I don't really see an issue there. And to Councillor Glacken's point around consultation, which I agree with, I do think that the have your say process on the Lavington pool upgrade has only been running for 2 weeks. I don't really see it as the place of council to put forward a list of detailed options to the community, because it does, or it could have an effect of colouring people's opinion. We don't know what the result of that consultation is yet, and we won't for some time. And so I'm not comfortable supporting a motion which includes points which in effect, can, I don't want to use the word preempt, but in a sense preempt the consultation, and I'm really not comfortable with that. So on those grounds, I can't support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hudson. No speakers for, speaker against, Councillor King.
Thank you, Mayor Mac. Look, for me, the replacement and enhancement of the Lavington pool is a non-negotiable, and I think all councillors were of that view, certainly on the last term, and clearly it would appear now, and I am pleased to see it progressing to the next stage of community consultation. It is a community asset that's quite precious. In terms of the aquatic centre at Lauren Jackson, I do understand concerns around the costs. It really would be a once in a generation investment, and that's why I thought that this next phase of detailed design, which has been budgeted for, that has been put in that operational plan for our community and was endorsed by the previous council after engaging with key stakeholders and the community. And again, I have reflected on the submissions we received in July when this last came about. When I first came to Albury, I remember people talking, I thought, where's the indoor pool? Well, we don't have one in Albury. And I was really surprised for a population the size of Albury that didn't exist. My hometown, I think at the time of 13,000 people, had an indoor pool, and it was a great asset for growing up. PE classes, learned to swim. So, that was something that I thought was definitely missing in our community. And then I realised the football that had been kicked over time. And you can see that in the feedback. This has been something needed for such a long period of time. Please make it happen. People are pointing out that it will not only meet current needs, but also factor in population growth. And that's something that we always, have to look very strategically at the long term. Exercise therapy, rehab lacking in the community, hooray. An indoor aquatic centre is long overdue. It should have been constructed years ago. So I really can sense this frustration in this community over a long period of time prior to me moving here in 1995. And while I supported the previous term of council, I really did see it as a vision and an aspiration, but really only achievable if funding partners could be sourced. I remain of that view, but I do appreciate that financial circumstances of council and state and federal governments may not allow, unfortunately, that vision to be realised. Funding streams, pardon me, might be more challenging to source than they were a few years ago. Pardon me, but at least with a detailed preliminary preliminary design, accurate costing. We have something tangible to aspire to in a staged infrastructure project, whether that needs to, our aspiration needs to be adapted over time, perhaps, and only progressing when budgets allow. So that's why I'm not supporting this motion before us tonight.
Thank you. A question from Councillor Glacken. Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. Through you to the most relevant member of staff. I've focused on this motion tonight rather than the aquatics facility, but I do have a question about the aquatics facility, if I may, even though that's not primarily what this motion's about. So through you to the most relevant member of staff, my understanding is, or my memory is that a regional aquatics facility as envisaged at the moment and currently planned for the Lauren Jackson area is X size. But my memory was that staff also indicated that it was possible to have a planned and phased build of that on the basis that it could be achievable with various components of funding. So you might do half X or 60% of X with one bucket of money and then pursue an additional bucket of money for the 40% of Y. Is that possible for funding sources? But would it be theoretically achievable for a physical entity such as an aquatics facility?
Thank you. Mr. Glass.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor Glacken, and through you, Mayor Mac. The earlier feasibility study did recommend that we look at staging such a large project, and clearly staging involves separating the courts facilities from the aquatics facilities. But even within the aquatics facilities, it also made recommendations such as relocation of the water slide at some future date as well. But clearly, you can't build half a 50-metre pool and then rebuild it, sort of thing. So it to a point, you absolutely can achieve staging. That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Comfortable?
Yep.
Yep. Appears to be no further speakers for or against. Just before you close debate, Councillor Cameron, just add a few words to this particular debate. Historically, this particular issue has been before this council on a number of occasions. On one occasion or one event in 2006, Wodonga were planning their new Waves Centre in Wodonga on the ring road at Pierce Street. Now, it was the approach from Wodonga was that Albury could build a regional facility, indoor regional facility with them, and that would solve the problem about indoor water. At the time, the then council that was sitting decided in their wisdom not to pursue that particular offering, and I think at the time it was costed around $30 million, according to the former mayor of Wodonga, Councillor Speedy. Now, that was in 2006. In 2017, well, prior to 2017, we had ODIM planners look at our water here in Albury Wodonga and provide a series of reports at great cost to us to identify what would we do with our aquatics facilities. So that cost more money. 2017, Councillor King, former Councillor King, not the current Councillor King, and myself took Councillor Baker, who was then Stuart Baker, to meet with the Deputy Secretary of Regional Infrastructure and two of his high-level staff to discuss funding for aquatic facilities in regional New South Wales. After what was about a 2-hour meeting, the prevailing view was that, in their view, they would never have money available for that sort of offering. Point of order, Mr. Baker, Councillor Baker. Are you talking as Mr. Baker or Councillor Baker now?
Thank you. I just wanted to let you know I have a different recollection of the meeting. Thank you.
So this is contrary to some of the emails I've received over the last couple of days, which would indicate that it's quite confusing what happened on that particular occasion, but that opportunity was provided to Councillor Baker and that meeting was had and discussed. So we move forward to 2019. The member for Farrer, Susan Lee, encouraged aquatic users to sign a petition for her, if successful in the election, to provide funding for an indoor aquatic facility. Yes, I can hear it. I just can't hear what happened with that because I don't think anything happened with that. The petition was signed and nothing has eventuated. So we move forward to 2023, was it, when this report came to council in relation that I have here, the business case that Councillor Kelleher references from Leisure Planners that speaks about $150 million and $120 million for an aquatic facility, which for whatever reason, 2006 was 30 million. Now, the question I have, or the concern I have is that A, as Councillor Cameron has indicated, we are going through a very difficult time in our financial position in council. We have a $20 million deficit in operational budget. We have major infrastructure required for the Thaguna-Willinga corridor, given its accelerated growth in the last 3 years. This is not just a little bit of money. This is a lot of money. This is a council that recently drafted a budget around 120 million for the whole of council for that year, for this next year. We are reviewing another budget in the next 3 to 4 months. Now, as Councillor Cameron indicated, there does not appear on our horizon, even if they provided a third of the cost of this pool centre, say 40 million, any chance of us as a council in the prevailing generations to find $80 million, and that's not without accelerated costs, because costs will go up, to build this pool. So my point is, why spend another $1 million plus all the other money that's been spent on these aquatic facilities? And look, I have a child that is a great swimmer and a great water polo player. But as a city, we have a responsibility to manage our funds responsibly. Spending another $1 million, throwing another $1 million at this particular issue, and all the documentation we have currently that supports an approach to government, I see is fruitless and impossible to manage given our current cash environment. Now, what is an SVR? Special rate variation, special variation of rates. I can't see our city tolerating a special rate variation in the current climate or the next 5 or 10 years of a special rate variation. And I reiterate, Thaguna-Willinga and other items like the sewer main for the main trunk main here in Albury are very costly. We just don't have the money. And I'm afraid I would not in any way speak against this motion. I will speak for the motion as tabled. Thank you. Councillor Cameron, you wish to close. Councillor Baker has a question before you close. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mayor Mack. A question through you to the most relevant member of staff. Would council in any way, if there was detailed plan and design, recommend to council that anyone in their right mind would proceed with such a project if there was no funding?
Mr. Zachnich?
No, we wouldn't be advising that way or recommending that way.
Thank you. Councillor Baker, happy with that?
Another question. Thank you.
Yep.
So the next question is, without, no, I'll leave it at that. We've been over that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron, happy to close debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Mack. As foreshadowed, there was a number of red herrings that were raised. The first one, of course, as I predicted, was that the motion is quite clear. And, you know, I know English can be tricky to read at times, but it's pretty clear that the report is to be informed by the consultation currently going on. It doesn't replace the consultation. It doesn't impact on the consultation. It's absolute furphy. In terms of the essential matters that need to be done at Albury Pool, they are just that, essential. Provision of shade is a health WHS requirement. It's essential. The work on the boilers is essential. This motion in no way precludes those sort of things taking place at Albury. What it seeks to do is to prioritise Lavington as the main area of development for aquatics in the near future. Other sporting groups, when they look to have facilities upgraded or built, usually offer to contribute a substantial part of the cost. An example of that would be the netballers at JC King Park, who from memory contributed 25, I think, % or perhaps even higher of the cost of JC King Park upgrade. The New City Cricket Club and the Murray Magpies contributed a lot of the cost of the upgrade of the Urana Road Oval, both in kind and in cash. This is the normal way sporting clubs work with council to get improved facilities. Through the last 12, 13 years, I have never heard any of the aquatic clubs or any representative of the aquatic clubs or any member of any of the aquatic clubs, including Councillor Baker, offer to contribute to the cost of this proposed facility. And that's not a criticism necessarily, because it just goes to show the magnitude of the scale of what's being proposed here. A facility that is equivalent in cost to the entire budget of the City of Albury for 1 year. I mean, it's just not feasible, and it is way in excess of what we can do. Even with support from the state or federal government and the experience of the Mama development and the experience of the Lavington Oval development prove that it's almost impossible to get simultaneous funding from the state and the federal governments. They don't like to do it at all. And I needn't point out, I think, the current difficulties in getting funding for the proposed redevelopment or a new hospital. It's an absolute, Albury is perceived. Albury is particularly challenging because of Albury's fairly solid and consistent political voting habits. Shouldn't be that way. Money should be allocated for people's health, people's recreation on an equitable basis. But in the world in which we live, Albury struggles compared to some other places to get funding. And I'm talking about Wagga, for example. So, Councillor Hudson, well, one thing I've got to say about the Greens, they're never afraid to spend your rates.
Point of order.
Point of order,
What?
Councillor Callaghan.
To the debate, don't make it personal.
That's not a point of order. Point of order, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to speak on the point of order.
Yes, Councillor Cameron, you may speak on the point of
On the
order.
point of order, it is a reasonable observation, I think, to indicate that people are not afraid to spend the rates. It's
I
not
probably
personal.
would agree with you. Yes, continue, Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't quite hear you over Councillor Baker's interjection there. But, you know, but the problem is that the next thing that will happen, if this motion fails, the next thing that will happen is that we will spend $1.5 million on detailed design. Okay, $1.5 million on detailed design, preliminary design, excuse me. That's just the preliminary. That's not the detailed, that's the preliminary. So constantly, as we go on, if I'm not trying to personalise the debate, but Councillor Hudson did make the observation that he regards the slippery slope argument as a fallacy, which is a fair observation, I suppose. I don't agree with it, and I can show you that it's not the case, because that is exactly how Mama came about. When I was first elected onto council again, which I ran in the wake of some incredible special rate variations that were forced on the people of Albury, when a couple of councillors in this chamber were previously on council, I was determined to control the increase in rates and to oppose, as I've always done, special rate variations. But Mama too was being spoken about in the same way the Lauren Jackson Aquatic Centre is now. We won't do it if we don't have the money. No person in their right mind would build it until the state and federal governments contribute to it. You know, don't worry. It won't happen until we get funding. Well, guess what? We didn't get federal funding. Oh, no, correct me if I'm wrong. We did get federal funding. We didn't get state funding. But we went ahead and did it anyway, because the argument was that we have invested so much money in the design. If we don't build it, we'll have to give the money back. So we just better go ahead and do it. I've seen it happen. It's not a theory. It's something that has happened and will happen again with this project. If we continue to dabble and stick our toe in the water, then walk deeper in, and before long you reach the point of no return. A bit like Macbeth when he talks about being in blood so far mired that turning back is as onerous as going forward. But anyway, I would encourage you to vote for this motion, because one day it might be possible to build the Lauren Jackson Aquatic Centre as designed or as talked about. But that day is not any time soon. It's just not possible. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Cameron. On that note, happy to put the motion. Those voting for the motion, raise your hand, please. Those voting against the motion. The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Of CM 12 documents for sealing, 12.1. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. Through you to move the recommendation as a motion that council authorises its seal to be affixed to the documents outlined below in the presence of two signatories authorised to affix the seal pursuant of Regulation 400, Local Government General Regulation 2021, and the council seal and management of legal documents and advice procedure. A, Albury City lease to Chazeb Proprietary Limited Riverdeck Cafe, 5-year lease option commencing 1 November 2024, file number 13/02954. B, Albury City lease to Yes Unlimited, which is 329 Griffith Road, Lavington, the 5-year lease option commencing 1 November 2024, file number 15/02068. And C, Albury City lease to the Secretary to the Department of Energy, for the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action, Albury Airport, Lot 24, lease renewal commencing 1 July 2024 to 30 June 2029, file number 13/013493. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Callaghan.
Happy to second the recommendation.
Thank you, councillor Glacken. Do you wish to speak to that at all?
Thank you. No.
There's no further question or debate. Happy to put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. Just to go back a bit, at CM2, there are no presentations, deputations. CM11, there are no reports or minutes of committees and working parties. So we'll move on. CM13, officer reports for consideration. 13.1, development application 10.20892.40892.001, stage 29 lot residential subdivision 710 Riverina Highway, Thaguna. Thank you, councillors. Councillor King.
I move that Council A receives the contents of this report and B grants consent to development application 10.20240.40892.1 for a stage 29 lot subdivision and associated works on land described as Lot 1 of DP 129888683, situated at 710 Riverina Highway, Thaguna, subject to the conditions contained in the draft determination included at attachment 5 to this report.
Thank you, councillor Glacken.
Happy to second.
Thank you. Councillor King, do you wish to speak to that?
Just noting, and certainly in terms of open space and landscaping, particular reference that a local park to be delivered as part of stage 2A, which will extend the local regional park proposed. I think that is very much in keeping with the expectations of our precinct structure plan, and in essence actually exceeds the plan in terms of the amount of quality and functional open space is planned. So I consider that is definitely a benefit in the plans as have been put forward before us. So certainly supportive of this stage, noting that yes, the demand is certainly there for housing, as we know, and the fact that this has come before us is a positive thing for those seeking to own and build homes.
Thank you. Are you speaking for councillor Cameron? Are you still happy to do that, or I just have a question? Okay. Question from councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Mayor Mac. To the most relevant staff member. Yes, just mentioned was the creation of a local park to adjoin the reserve to the south in earlier stages. Can you be clear about what stage? Because we've already approved stage 1, or is it early in stage 2? Just some clarification.
Mr. Christie.
Thank you for the question, and for you, Mayor Mac. So previously council did approve stages, I believe it's 1 to 6 or 1 to 7 in the previous development application for 710 Riverina Highway. And pardon me, and that was providing the open space in stage 1 of that development. In this particular proposal, there's an extension to that open space, and this proposal's into stage 2A and 2B, and it's proposed to be part of 2A, so the first portion of this development as well.
Thank you. And just a follow-up question.
Yep.
In regards to a super lot, a fairly new term, we approved 1 in stage 1 and there's an additional 2 in this release. Can you explain a little bit more about what a super lot means?
Mr. Christie.
Thank you for the question, and for you, Mayor Mac. In regards to a super lot, that's an indication that rather than it being conventionally subdivided as the other lots have, and then someone's expected to put a single dwelling or the like on one. They're keeping those parcels aside for what you might call an integrated development, where they're planning to build the houses all as one package, rather than as individual house and land or land available for houses.
Thank you, Mr. Christie.
Thank you, councillor Callaghan. There appears to be no further speakers for or against. Councillor King, did you wish to close debate?
No, happy to put the motion.
Thank you. Happy to put the motion by division. Councillors, all those for the motion? We have councillor Baker, councillor Bullivan, councillor Bukowski, councillor Cameron is not here. Okay, we have councillor Mack, councillor Callaghan, councillor Hudson, councillor Glacken and councillor King. The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Okay. We move to 13.2, development application 10.24.408.28.001, tourist and visitor accommodation, service apartments and commercial premises, restaurant, 652 Dean Street, Albury. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. Through you to move the recommendation as motion that Council A receives the consensus report and B grants consent to development application 10.2024.40828.1 regarding land situated at 652 and 660 Dean Street, Albury, and 512 and 526 Creek Street, Albury, legally described as Lot B, DP 443767, Lot A, DP 443767, Lot 2, DP 975067, Lot 3, DP 69083, Lot 42, DP 614482 for construction of tourist and visitor accommodation, service apartments and commercial premises restaurant, subject to deferred commencement and the conditions contained in the draft determination included at attachment 5 to this report.
Thank you. I need a seconder. Thanks, councillors. Councillor Bullivan.
Like to second that through you, Mayor Mac.
Thank you. Councillor Glacken, do you wish to speak to that?
Yes, I would like to highlight a couple of points with reference to this. Accommodation is a growing area in Albury for residential, but also for tourist and visitor accommodation. We are, of course, a destination for conferences, so visitor and tourist accommodation is always required and it needs to be refreshed. This is a great opportunity to increase the number of bed or visitor rooms in our city. It's also an opportunity perhaps for some of the people visiting for work to be able to use these premises as well, including the medical related fly-in, fly-out staff who are in desperate need for such accommodation. And we all know that tourism and visitor the visitor economy for Albury is a significant part of our economy because it's not just for the visitors or the accommodation facilities or the restaurants, it's all those ancillary and flow-on organisations and businesses that benefit from this. The point I really want to highlight is about the deferred commencement, which is part of the conditions. It's important for council on occasion to be able to consider the opportunity to allow developers or the proponents to request for deferral based on certain conditions being met, and this is one such case. Clearly, this development is expensive, and to enable it to be able to proceed and for that further detailed work to be undertaken by the proponent, they are really in essence asking for an assurity from council that we would support this development into the future. That then gives them the confidence to be able to spend on those further detailed works and then make that information available to council to determine the way forward. Of course, the requirements I set as minimum standards and agreed standards with council and the proponent. So this is a sensible way forward. It's providing a good product for Albury, and I'm supporting this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Glacken. There appears a question from councillor Hudson.
Thank you, Mayor Mac, through to the most relevant member of staff. My question relates to the surface treatment of the outside of the building being very dark. I believe it's a mixture of bluestone cladding and the monument colour bond colour on metal. Acknowledging that heat and extreme heat is the most severe and likely health impact of rising temperatures with climate change. My question is, can we discuss with the proponent reviewing the surface treatment of the building to perhaps include lighter colours to diminish the thermal effects in the immediate environment of a very dark building?
Mr. Christie.
Thank you for the question, and for you, Mayor Mac. In regards to the requesting for further discussions with the developer, I guess in some ways the consideration will be at what point. There's currently condition B13, which is in the proposed conditions, which does require a schedule of materials and finishes, being the colours of those materials, to be provided to council for consent prior to them getting then their construction certificate to be able to go and construct on site. So that's requiring them to provide. That was in context of urban design and consideration of the heritage conservation area that the building's located in, and therefore was consideration of how it fit in with its surrounds as such. And that's well within council's purview with consideration to the heritage conservation and the notation of the sites within that area. In regards to then some of the other components, yes, there are some larger, there also is some large amounts of glazing and the like. And in regards to when council would require those considerations to be done from the developer, in respect is a query I would just go in regards to advising my response. If it was via a condition of consent, which is currently there, then that's in regard to that context, and it does become obviously a request and a negotiation process through those. If it's council wishing that to be provided prior to any determination by council, yes, we can go back to the developer, seek that information and provide that prior to council making the determination. But with consideration to as I said before, the major component from the plan advice being around the heritage nature of the site and its consideration within the streetscape, it would be a request rather than a requirement.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question. The back lane is very narrow, and can discussion be had with the proponent around clearly delineating ingress and egress to the parking areas so that there are minimising impacts on the surrounding businesses and other users of that lane?
Mr. Christie.
Thank you for the question. And for you, Mayor Mac, just for clarification, that the rear is a right-of-way which is owned by a number of landholders in that area. It's not a council lane, so it's a private access way. In regards to that, and it's shared through with a number of properties providing access. According to the plans of subdivision, so for the original subdivision is around 20 foot, which is just over 6 metres. Practical width is around 5.8 metres of construction, which does allow two-way flow with consideration to consideration through on council staff in relation to standards. In regards to then imposing on the right-of-way, which in essence is shared ownership between the number of parties that have benefit of it, you would have to have some discussions around those other parties before we could impose anything, because they would need to grant their consent. This stage, their consent wasn't required to be obtained because they weren't proposing to make material alterations. As I said before, our council staff have had a look at it and consider that the laneway is adequate, or the right-of-way is adequate to service the development.
Thank you.
Thank you. And no further questions or debate. Mr. Christie, just in relation to the right-of-way, the ingress and egress and the combination of two car parks, not with driveways, not separate, not really separated. That that wide. Then you've got the other undercover coming out from the other direction. So they're all impacting in the same area. And the turning circle and all the related concerns there. And then if you look at the diagram on this SALT report, and I drove down the lane today, there's 2 large commercial bins at the back of one of the shops, and I cannot see them being moved because they've got nowhere to put them. They then impact upon the 5.8 metre requirement that you mentioned, but they also make the ingress and egress there very complicated because everyone seems to leave at 11 o'clock. They check out at 11 and they're on a roll. And I note that there is, beyond the main car park, an option for egress from another car park, through another car park, which is owned by the applicant as well. I mean, aren't we best to review what we can do versus just let it unfold and see it become a calamity? Because I'm not comfortable with what that represents in terms of the schematics and the width of that lane. It's not just a straight lane. There's a lot of jutting out fences. And this morning when I drove up, there's a big delivery van parked in the back of one of the houses, and it's sitting out jutting onto the 5.8, so that made it 4.8, and so on and so forth. So it's not really what I'd think as being a suitable ingress and egress. Your thoughts?
Thank you for the question, and for you, Mayor Mack. Obviously, our thoughts are outlined within the council report, which we have to consider that the availability of that right-of-way is available. In regards to the right-of-way provisions, yes, there can be minor intrusions at times, but it becomes a civil matter between parties in regards to making certain that right-of-way does serve its form and function for all those parties, and no party should be impinging upon any of those rights, and the council does not get involved in those because it's a civil matter as opposed to if it was one of our laneways. But in regards to the functionalities, as I said before, with indications to our internal deliberations, we have considered it appropriate for that. In regards to access through adjoining properties which may have been owned by the same party, that could very well be something that was proposed by the applicant, but it hasn't been. So at this stage, recommendation will be consideration of what is proposed. If council wishes to defer the matter for consideration for some of those further matters, more than happy to take that on board and go back to the parties.
Thanks, Mr. Christie. There appears to be no further questions or debate. Councillor Glacken, do you wish to close debate on this item?
Yes. This is a development that has been talked about and known to council, or talked with and known to council for a couple of years now. It is something that will be of benefit to the community on a larger scale because of, as I've already referred to, the benefits as they flow on from this facility. There is a deferred component, or 2 deferred components as are detailed as conditions within the draft determination. And notwithstanding the questions raised by a councillor about the facade, that sort of information will come back to council into the future. At this stage, I believe this is the right course to take and that we should be supporting this development at this point, noting that there will be further parts of the planning that will be required to be gone through. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glacken. On that note, I'm happy to put the motion by division. Those in favour? Councillor Baker, Councillor Bullivant, Councillor Kowski, Councillor Cameron, no. Councillor Hudson, Councillor Mack, Councillor Callan, Councillor Hudson, Councillor Glacken and Councillor King. Thank you. Motion is carried. Those against? Councillor Cameron. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to CM 13.3, Development Application 10.2023.39970.2, Modification of Development Consent Auxiliary Building Works to the approved development 87 Kookaburra Way, East Albury. Councillors, thank you. Councillor Cameron.
I move that Council A receives the contents of this report and B grants consent to modification application 10.2023.39970.2 for development, including a colourblind shed, swimming pool, shade structure and associated outbuildings, pickleball court, access crossovers and earthworks on lot 102 in DP 1264791, situated at 87 Kookaburra Way, East Albury, subject to the conditions contained in draft modified determination included in attachment 5 to this report.
Thank you. Councillor Callaghan.
Second the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron, did you wish to open debate?
No, thank you, Mayor Mac.
Question from Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Mayor Mac, to the most relevant staff member. We can read from the report that this is a C3 environmental managed zone land, and it repeats throughout the documentation that it's flood prone area. And there were several submissions expressing concerns around it being flood prone and perhaps those knock-on effects to neighbouring properties. How can there be assurances for the neighbouring properties?
Mr. Christie.
Thank you for the question, and for you, Mayor Mac. The most important consideration to be relevant of in this case is that this is a modification to the consent. So this consent was granted through Land and Environment Court for the development as proposed, which included large amount of fill and those structures that are determined on there. And that went through a process with consideration, one, to the impacts and the appropriability on the C3 land in regards to environmental impacts, but also in regards to potential flood impacts. This modification seeks to increase the size of the shed that's already on top of the fill, which creates that area as outside the 1% or 1 in 100 year flood terminology. So in this respect, there would nothing to suggest that this modification before council would have any impacts upon the behaviour of floodwaters on the site.
Thank you, Mr. Christie.
Thank you, Mr. Christie. No further question or debate. Councillor Cameron, do you wish to close debate?
Thank you, Mayor Mac.
Happy to put the motion by division. All those in favour? Councillor Baker, Councillor Bullivant, Councillor Bukowski, Councillor Cameron, Councillor Mack, Councillor Callaghan, Councillor Hudson, Councillor Glacken and Councillor King. The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. 13.4 development application 10.2024.41052.001 change of use animal care facility 581 Hovell Street, South Albury. Councillor King.
I move that Council A receives the contents of this report and B grants consent to development application 10.2024.41052.1 for a community facility situated at 581 Hovell Street, Albury, described as Lot 1, DP 501326, subject to the conditions contained in the draft determination included at attachment 5 to this report.
Thank you. Councillor Bukowski.
Happy to second the motion, Mayor Mac.
Thank you. Councillor King, I have a question from Councillor Cameron. If you wish me to take the question, is that okay? Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Mayor Mac. Through you to the most appropriate member of staff. I don't want to hound anybody, but is it the case they're already in there? They've moved in?
Mr. Christie.
Thank you for the question, and for you, Mayor Mac. Yes, that's correct. They have already occupied the premises. The request for council is to formalise it. Should council grant consent tonight, I would formalise it from tonight. That doesn't stop if council doesn't feather our discretion if we wish to take action with the fact there was unauthorised occupation. It just formalises it from the date of consent.
Very good.
Thank you. Further question, Councillor Callaghan.
That's fine. Thank you.
No. Councillor King, did we open debate?
Just to note that the proposal really has, in terms of noise issues that may have been raised, that keeping dogs on the site is only a temporary measure during the day, that there would be a maximum of 4 dogs proposed to be kept on site at any given time, and that in the majority of cases it would only be 1 or 2, and there would be arrangements so that there would be no dogs kept on site overnight. So I think that will help give ease to any of the neighbours that may have raised concerns, and noting that it's definitely used for housing for cats. I have actually walked past that facility probably a couple of days each week, and I've not heard any noise. It all seems well managed, well maintained, and you can see that the volunteers are spending, appear to be spending good time and care for the animals, helping to deliver a much needed service for our community. So I'm happy to support the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Glacken, question?
Yes, thank you. Through you to the most relevant member of staff. I can't remember the exact wording in the report, but it says or implies that it's not intended that dogs will stay overnight, that they are there on a temporary basis only. So where do these dogs go? If they come during the day, where do they go at night?
Mr. Christie, do you know the answer to that question?
Thank you for the question, and for you, Mayor Mack, I believe that they go back to where the volunteers would normally reside, or they'll be going off premises. But condition B11 on the proposed consent talks about no dogs will be kept on site unless there's a person on site present at all times as well. So it's not just the dogs not being kept overnight, but there's to be a person on site to ensure that should there be unacceptable noise impacts, then that's able to be appropriately managed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Speaker 4, Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Mayor Mack. This is a great group of people. They do great things, and it's very appreciated in our community, the work that they do on a volunteer basis. They should be supported in every way that we can support them. And this motion simply gives effect to normalise, what is a clerical matter really, or a developmental matter. I believe that we do have a problem with stray dogs in Albury. I really do. It's been the subject of conversations I've had with the CEO recently, and I'm in the process of elucidating him to the depth and scale of that problem, which he initially doesn't seem to accept that I'm right, but I know I'll make him understand in time.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. If there's been no further speakers or questions, just on this matter, I speak for the motion on the basis. I did call in and see the team today and had a random inspection of the premises, and being a cat lover and a dog lover, I think it's very well kept, very well maintained, and certainly the cats appear to be very happy, which is generally a good sign that they are clean and healthy. And when asked about the dog issue, Councillor Glacken, that it was communicated to me that people would be on site, and if not, if the dogs were considered to be unsafe to leave there overnight, they would consider taking them off site and not being a noise concern for neighbours. Have no issue at all supporting this motion. I think it's, as Councillor Cameron has indicated, it is a very much needed facility and needed service, and I encourage anyone that can offer their support to volunteer at this service to go down and speak to people. Thank you very much. Councillor King, did you wish to close debate?
No, thank you.
Happy to put the motion by division. All those in favour, Councillor Baker, Councillor Bullen, Councillor Kowski, Councillor Cameron, Councillor Mack, Councillor Callan, Councillor Hudson, Councillor Blacken and Councillor King. The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. 13.5, Bunton Park Master Plan Review, Draft Stakeholder Engagement Plan. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Cameron.
I'd like to move that Council A receives and notes the contents of this report, and B endorses the draft stakeholder engagement plan for the review of the Bunton Park Master Plan.
Thank you. Councillor Bukowski.
Happy to second the motion, Mayor Mack.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron, do you wish to open debate?
Thank you, Mayor Mack. Some councillors will be aware, but many councillors are new and will not, or newer and may not be aware, that we had I can't quite remember the year, but I'm going to guess and say it was about 15 or 16, that we had an issue at Bunton Park with the lease arrangements where there was an overarching sports club similar to the structure of the Lavington Football Club, and the football club, bowling club, netball club, and I think cricket club, if I'm correct, were underneath in theory that leasee from council, but the relationship had irretrievably broken down, and there was all sorts of problems, and there was fiscal problems around that. So it's very pleasing to see that we're going ahead at Bunton Park, and that the new arrangements that were put in place past that era of dealing, I believe we leased directly to the football club, do we not? And that has sorted the problem. seems to be. And it's an area that needs doing up. It certainly does. Change rooms have had some work, but they need more. And I believe there's still issues with some of the toilets as well. Nevertheless, it is a very important part of our local football culture and sporting arrangements. And I recommend the motion to you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. No questions or speakers against? Councillor Hudson wishing to speak for.
Thank you, Mayor Mac. I do, commend the stakeholder engagement plan. Certainly, the adjoining Logan Road Dog Park is a very important facility in our community. I think it's probably more important for the humans that visit it than the dogs, in fact. It's a space that's used as obviously a vital recreation space for dogs to exercise them safely and off leash. But beyond that, it's also a very important area for people to socialize. And there are a number of certainly members of our community who are on the older end of the spectrum who use it a lot. And so I do think that having more than one pop-up session at the Logan Road Dog Park to get the range of views of the sort of different user groups who use it at different times of day would be very important. Certainly, I've had the community members express to me concerns around loss of space in the dog park with the expansion of the netball courts. And I think it's very important that the proposed dog park on the other side in Fredericks Park, which has been proposed, although I'm not sure with what level of formality goes ahead. So I think it's very important that we do hear the thoughts of the members of the users of the dog park. So I commend the plan.
Thank you. No speakers against, no questions. Speaker for, Councillor King.
Just basically to congratulate the team on coming back with this master plan. I know we were heading in a direction that was eagerly anticipated by the users. Clearly, there is utilisation of the main building. There's some new information now that's come to hand, given that the management lease has been surrendered. So pleasing to see that it already has the support of the user groups, and this motion is really now looking at the rest of the community also being able to engage. So concept designs being developed and supported by the user groups, now going to detailed design, and I'm sure many would say it can't come quickly enough. It's certainly in need of some love.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron, there are no further questions or debate. Happy to close.
Thank you, Mayor Mac.
Happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. 13.6, the draft Murray River Experience Master Plan Review and draft Lake Hume Reserves Master Plan Public Exhibition Submissions. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you. I'd like to move the recommendation that council receive and note the community feedback received through the Phase 3 Murray River Experience Master Plan Review, Public Exhibition, and B, endorse the following final versions of the Murray River Experience Master Plan Review. 1, Murray River Experience Master Plan Review Revision B, and 2, Central Albury Riverside Parks Master Plan Revision B, and 3, Lake Hume Reserves Master Plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hudson.
Happy to second that, Mayor Mac.
Councillor Callaghan, do you wish to open debate?
I do. I think that this has been a huge undertaking, and what we've gleaned from it is that this will certainly attract visitors to Albury, and people will want to come and use what's been proposed. I have a question.
Yeah.
Go now through to the most relevant staff member. It was noted that one of the constraints was multiple private land tenures. Are there options that doesn't access private land?
This is to do with the Mugera Trail extension or trail extension?
Yeah, trail extension. Yeah.
Just to confirm, thank you.
Mr. Costello.
Thanks very much for the question, Councillor Callaghan, and through you, Mayor Mac. Yeah, there are a range of options, and as it's a master plan at this stage, we've just flagged the high-level options, and those options include a mixture of private and public land, either wholly or combinations thereof. As it comes time to progress the project that would be up for council further consideration as part of future budget deliberations. We have an individual stakeholder engagement plan for that specific section or alignment of the trail, which would provide the opportunity then to have further negotiations and undertake the necessary feasibility to identify the most appropriate alignment in that instance.
Thank you, Mr. Costello.
Okay, no further questions or debate. Councillor Callahan, did you wish to close debate?
No, thank you.
Happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. 13.7 draft response to OLG discussion paper on councillor conduct and meeting practices. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Cameron.
I'll be guided by you, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Mack, and through you, the most appropriate member of staff, which may be the CEO, I would think. I wish to endorse this and move this motion, but I wish to make a change to the draft submission. Does that need to be done by way of a substantive motion, or what is the best way to proceed?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Cameron, through you, Mayor Mack. So, Councillor Cameron, you could move the recommendation on the screen with the addition of your amendment or change to the submission or addition to the submission.
Thank you. I will now do that. I'd like to move that council endorse the draft submission of the Office of Local Government, OLG, discussion paper, councillor conduct and meeting practice, a new framework, with the exception of the draft report's reference to not supporting a ban on real estate and real estate agents and property developers running for council, and that council resolves that be changed to supporting a potential ban on real estate agents and property developers running for council. The rest of the report I'm very much in agreement with.
Thank you.
Crickets. I do.
You can.
Oh.
Okay. You what, Chris?
Sorry about that.
We just need to wait for the amendment to
Sometimes
appear
we're
before we
genius
can
and
second it. You're spontaneous genius. Wow. There isn't a comment.
Is there a second?
Yeah.
Just wait for the Councillor Hudson, you happy to second?
I'll wait to see what it says on the screen, but yes, I think I'll be happy to second.
Thank you. Darren. You wish to open debate on your motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Mack. As a matter of principle, it is my belief and belief of many people like me that real estate agents and property developers should not be on council. It's although real estate agents are able to run and property developers are able to run at the moment. A property developer is actually, along with licensees, a prohibited donor. So there's a law which bans them donating money to candidates and to campaigns in local government and at the state level. Yet they're free themselves to run for council. Surely if it is necessary, and I believe it is necessary, to have a law that prohibits them being donors, that is indicative that it is not desirable by the nature of their business that they have access to necessarily the confidential matters that would occur if they are serving councils.
Thank you. I have a speaker against, Councillor Glacken.
Thank you. I speak against the addition of the ban on property developers and real estate agents holding office. I support the original letter as was drafted, or feedback as was drafted, and I foreshadow that should this motion be lost, that we would return to the substantive motion and the substantive feedback to the discussion paper that councillors have had significant time to be able to provide feedback to. And one of the reasons I say that I would not support this is because in particular in a place like Albury or in smaller municipalities, there are all sorts of complications that could come from this. So it would not just be a developer or real estate agent. It could be a stock and station agent, someone who is a builder, someone married to a builder, dare I say a mechanic, because they might be fixing the tractors occasionally that belong to council, or someone that sells vehicles because that's their job. The reality is that there are ways in which this is dealt with, and it's about the code of conduct. There is a process that happens. It is not a difficult process, and for people who get it wrong, there are consequences. There is a system, there is a process, there is a format, and it can be applied. This adding of a specific group of people within our community is not appropriate. And I remind people, it is not that distant from this suggestion that we move to someone who's a builder or married to a builder, someone who repairs vehicles, someone who sells various infrastructural vehicles. All of these things are areas where council does work, procures from the community or from areas within the community, businesses. Next thing we know, there'll be a ban on people who sell stationery, and because council buys stationery as well. So no, I cannot support this, and I confirm I foreshadow that I would move the original motion should this motion be lost. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glacken. Noted. Speaker 4, Councillor Hudson.
Thank you, Mayor Mack. In 2017, the New South Wales government actually stripped planning powers from local councils in Sydney in large part because of concerns around conflict of interests with councillors who were property developers. The reasons why people who engage in property development have very, very significant actual or potential conflicts of interest in local government should be fairly obvious to everyone. As Councillor Cameron said, there's access to very sensitive and confidential information, which could significantly impact business decisions. So I think it's pretty obvious why it should happen. I would also just hope in speaking for this motion that in this instance, Councillor Cameron would agree with my points around slippery slope arguments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hudson. Speaker against, Councillor Baker. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Mack. I really don't, well, I'm not keen for property developers or real estate agents to run for council, because I think more often than most, they would have to declare an interest. But I'm against censorship in a lot of ways, and I think this is just precluding someone that could be retired, or they could have a license and they're not heavily involved in projects all the time. So singling them out, even though I don't think it's a great idea that real estate agents and particularly property developers run for council. I think there's also a safety net there where the voters can determine if they think someone is unsuitable due to the profession they're in. So I can't really go with this, even though the thrust of it I'm not overly against. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Baker. No speakers for. I have a speaker against. Councillor Callaghan.
Thank you, Mayor Mac. I speak against this and I agree with the sentiment that the community decide who they would like to elect. And if they see it inappropriate for a real estate agent or a property developer, then they can decide at the polls. It's a democratic process. The other thing is, which I learned, was this actually came to a voting at Algoa at one point, local government. And one of the speakers was from a small town where they were a real estate agent and they had many fingers in pies, because in small communities, it sometimes just is the case. And you need people who are willing to step up. And sometimes it's a very difficult role, as we all know and have experienced this evening. And you need people to run and the community will decide. And I think that it's been an open and democratic process. So I will not be supporting the motion.
Thank you, councillor Callaghan. No further speakers for or against. Councillor Cameron, did you wish to close?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Mac. I have to say that I disagree with Councillor Glacken's comments about it. You know, the next thing will be dealing with people who sell stationery or motor vehicle people. I mean, that is certainly a most egregious example of a slippery slope fallacy that I've ever heard. If it's good enough to have a law that says they can't contribute to campaigns, it's good enough that they should not be allowed to run for council. Simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Okay, 14.1, Officers' Reports for Noting, Service Excellence Program Update. Mover, thanks. Thank you, councillor Glacken.
Through you to move the recommendation as a motion that council receive and note the Albury City Service Excellence Program update.
Thank you, councillor Callaghan.
Happy to second the recommendation.
Thank you, councillor Glacken. Do you wish to open debate?
Thank you. No, I'll reserve my right of reply.
Thank you. There appears to be no. Hang on. Speak for. She's against for. Which one are you are?
No,
Councillor
I was just
Callaghan.
still laughing at the
Speaking
last one.
for.
Thank you. The Service Excellent Program update is really important. And the one I want to specifically talk about is the extreme weather responses. The community looked to council before, during and after an extreme weather event. And we have a large role to play in this space with communication, first responders, and definitely often the cleanup as well. So the aim of this is to continually improve our outcomes and delivery to the community. So I welcome the Service Excellent Program. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Callaghan. Councillor Glacken, you wish to speak for or close debate? Because there are no other further
If
speakers.
there's no others, then
Yes, you may
indeed
close
close
debate.
debate.
Thank you.
I thought that might be the case. Thank you. Yes, to close debate as highlighted by councillor Callaghan. This is a program that Albury City runs to ensure that we remain efficient and effective, providing the services and ensuring the facilities that our community want. It's all related to the Albury 2050 plan. Yes, councillor Cameron is nodding the Albury 2050 plan, as a number of areas that we have discussed this evening are also related to. And it's important to note that the Service Excellence Program has had a number of names here at council, but in essence, it's done a very similar thing in slightly different ways. The staff are continually revising the way in which this is undertaken. It's about service delivery, but it looks at the whole of that service delivery. So it's looking at the staffing, it's looking at the funding, it's looking at what they do and how they do it. They're looking at how they can become more efficient and more effective. And this therefore helps the staff to shape the way in which they need to present the next programs to Albury, to the councillors for the next 4-year and in fact, the individual delivery programs as well. Good report. Shows that there's lots of work being undertaken at the moment. It gives us a snapshot as where each of those projects are, and it also highlights the areas that are coming up, often areas that we're discussing as the reports come to council. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Gluckin. On that note, happy to put the motion. All those in favour? Anyone against? The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Delegates reports, we have none. Notice of urgent business, we've not been made aware of any, so we're up to the confidential item. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Gluckin.
Thank you, through you, to move the recommendation as a motion that council move into confidential to discuss item CM 17.1, confidential item exclusive of press or public, on the grounds that the matters and information are the following: A, personnel matters concerning particular individuals other than councillors, and that's with reference to Local Government Act 1993, number 30, section 10A 2A. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconded, councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mayor Mac. And could I ask that we have a 5-minute recess before we slip into confidential?
For what purpose?
Toilet break.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, sure. We can have a couple of minutes for
Thank you.
that. Thank you. So that's been seconded. So happy to put the vote before you go out, councillor Baker. All those in favour of going to confidential? Thank you, councillors. We'll take a 5-minute pause before we enter further discussions. Is there anyone in the chamber that has any reason for us not to go into confidential? There appears to be no one in the chamber except for Mr. Stevens. You're right, councillor Baker. Have your toilet break. Thank you.